The low hum of conversation filled the dining room, a pleasant sound that felt a world away from me. I sipped my soup in silence, listening to them discuss topics so far removed from my own life that I felt like an observer behind a glass wall. They spoke of academic conferences in Geneva and art installations in Florence, their words weaving a tapestry I had no threads in. Seated among them, treated as the official girlfriend, were Chloe and Leo. One by one, their friends offered congratulations to the couple in fluent French, casually asking about a wedding date. I lifted my eyes to look at Leo, who wore a polite, non-committal smile. He didn't correct them, nor did he offer any clarification, simply letting their assumptions hang in the air. To fit into his world, I had quietly taught myself 4 languages, French included. Yet, in moments like this, I realized language was never the real barrier. I was an outsider, a community college graduate in a circle of professors and doctors who held advanced degrees from overseas universities. I could see the subtle, deep-seated condescension in their eyes whenever they glanced my way. Excusing myself from the table, I walked to a quiet corner and dialed my brother's number. "Ethan," I said, my voice steady. "I'm ready to accept the matchmaking arrangement back home." After a brief conversation, I booked a flight to Beijing for that same night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when I returned to the apartment, and Leo still wasn't back. A news alert lit up my phone screen. It announced the passing of a prominent domestic entrepreneur, Chao Chung-heng, and that half of his vast estate would be donated to charity. News outlets were filled with condolences for the great philanthropist. Thinking back to the last time I saw my father, my eyes began to sting with tears. When I finally arrived at the hospital, I was a step too late. Dad's heart condition was always a problem, my brother Ethan explained, his eyes shadowed with a mixture of sorrow and self-reproach. He was so stubborn, he kept it from everyone. He was very sorry he didn't get to see you one last time, or see you get married. I buried my face in my hands, a tidal wave of guilt and regret washing over me. "Alara, I know this is incredibly difficult," Ethan continued, his voice gentle. "But this is the Chow family legacy. Dad always said you were the most talented of us, and he regretted that you chose to build a life somewhere else. But now, you're the only one who can do this. Please, think about it carefully." My father had 2 dying wishes. One was for me to take on the responsibility of leading the family enterprise, and the second was to see me settled and happy in a family of my own. I called Leo, my voice pleading. "Leo, please, just this once. Could you come home with me? It would mean so much to help my father rest in peace." But he was already pulling on his coat, his expression harried. "Alara, there's a limit to being unreasonable," he said sharply. "Chloe is drunk and it's freezing outside. It isn't safe for her to be alone." He pulled his arm from my grasp, and the sound of the door slamming shut echoed in the silent apartment. The irony was that Chloe was hardly alone. Their mutual friend Mark was right there with her. Later that evening, I saw Mark's post online. "No matter how many years go by, love always finds its way back to me. This single guy is really envious." At that moment, any remaining hope I had been clinging to simply dissolved. I gave up. I booked my return flight and began to pack my belongings. The front door opened, and Leo walked in looking sharp in a black overcoat. "You're back," he said, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took in the scene. "Why are you still awake?" "Just packing up some extra things to send back home," I offered as a casual excuse. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "It's late. You should get to bed. I'll finish this up." There was none of the interrogation I had anticipated. My quiet compliance was so unusual that he seemed unaccustomed to it, a small frown creasing his brow. The silence was broken by the sharp ring of his phone. It was Chloe, her voice thick with drunken tears. "Leo, can you come be with me? I feel like I can't go on." His voice softened instantly, becoming a gentle murmur of reassurance. "Just stay put. I'm on my way. I'm always here for you. Don't be afraid." He patiently coaxed her, his tone more tender than I had ever heard it. He hung up and looked at me. "Chloe has depression, and she's been drinking. You know that with depression, someone needs to be there to watch over them, otherwise." I nodded slowly, cutting off his explanation. "I know." Leo looked stunned for a moment, instinctively tugging at his sleeve to cover the faint scars on his wrist. Of course I knew. When he had been crippled by his own depression, I was the one who had painstakingly guided him out of that darkness. "Didn't you ask me to go home with you?" he said, a hint of unease in his voice. "I should be free after I finish up this current project." He seemed flustered by my lack of argument. "Also, I'm going to officially introduce you to all my friends." I simply nodded again. I had waited for years for him to make that official announcement, but now that the day was finally offered, it was only because I was already preparing to leave. It felt less like a beginning and more like an ending, a way to put a period on the ambiguous, undefined years we had spent together. "Alara, why are you dressed like that?" Leo asked, his voice laced with confusion. "Is there something wrong with it?" I asked, looking at him calmly. "No, no," he stammered, looking a bit dazed. "That dress. It suits you very well." In all our time together, he had only ever seen me in a muted palette of black, white, and gray. He considered those simple tones to be dignified and elegant, generous and decent. But today, I wore a flowing gown of goose yellow, my hair pulled back simply with a white jade pin. I had always adored bright, vibrant colors. Perhaps it was because he had spent the previous night with Chloe, only returning this morning. But his eyes held a deep apology. "That color looks wonderful on you," he said. "I'll buy you a few more when we get back." "Mm-hmm," I responded noncommittally. For some reason, Leo sensed that something fundamental had shifted between us. An uncomfortable silence settled in the car. When we arrived, Chloe and their friends were already waiting by the door of the private room, smiling. Once we were all seated, the conversation flowed easily, animated and lively. They moved from theoretical cultural skills to the expression of deep thoughts and feelings, and then, inevitably, to the subject of Leo's heart and Chloe. "Leo has been waiting for you for so many years, Chloe. You must know that," Mark said, looking at Leo with a teasing grin. "You two were always the perfect match in our eyes back then." Chloe smiled demurely. "You and Leo are a perfect match. Leo already has a girlfriend. I'm too late after all." "It's not too late," another friend chimed in. "We all know you've always been the one in Leo's heart. The girl next to him is just not really on the same level." "Mark, isn't that a bit harsh?" someone cautioned quietly. "It's true, though," another person insisted. "Everyone knows how much Leo loved Chloe. Well, if Alara hadn't taken advantage of the situation back then, they would have reconciled by now. Leo never forgot Chloe. Alara is just a substitute. If you don't believe me, just watch. She even imitates Chloe in everything from her style to her hobbies." But when I walked in, their words died in their throats. They all held their breath. The woman standing before them with her quiet and bright temperament was a world away from the elegant and noble image of Chloe they held in their minds. The atmosphere turned awkward. I looked at the stunned group and offered a graceful, confident greeting. Someone in the back muttered, "That doesn't look like her at all." Chloe, recovering, walked up to Leo with a brilliant smile. "Leo, congratulations on winning the top prize again. Won't you tell us about your new work?" She deliberately ignored me, laughing and chatting with Leo and the others as if I wasn't there. He smiled and began to speak about his artistic inspiration and his experiences over the years. Chloe was always able to seamlessly continue his train of thought, their conversation flowing like music. "They're like a pair of perfectly matched instruments, a true couple of talent and beauty," Mark commented. Then, switching to French, he asked, "So, when are you two getting married?" Everyone looked at me, a tacit agreement passing between them as they all continued in French. Chloe responded to their blessings graciously, also in French. I glanced at Leo, who stood beside me and said nothing to deny the assumption. I let out a quiet sigh and excused myself from my seat. As I walked away, I saw Mark's look of contempt. How could this junior college student possibly understand French? What Leo and his friends didn't know was that in my quest to understand his heart and integrate into his world, I had become fluent in 4 languages. This kind of basic conversation was no challenge for me at all. Standing in the hallway, listening to the muffled laughter from the private room, I dialed my brother's number again. "Ethan," I said firmly, "I'm ready to come back and inherit everything from Dad." On the other end of the line, I could hear the joy in his voice. Alara, I'm so glad to hear you say that. Mom and I both have been hoping you'd come back. You were always Dad's pride, you know. No matter what, we just want you to be happy. The sister I know has finally figured things out. He paused, his tone growing more serious. But I need a month to hand over my work here. Is your boyfriend coming back with you? Noticing the shift in my mood, he asked the question gently. At the mention of Leo, memories of the past few days flashed through my mind. Brother, I said, my voice clear. I'm going to break up with him. I will carry on our father's legacy, and I won't let it falter in our generation. Ethan sighed softly. Alara, he's been unwilling to come home with you for so long. He wouldn't even come with you to see Dad one last time. It's better to be without a man like that. I'll find someone good for you later. If you feel wronged, just come home. You'll always be a child of the Chow family. Thank you, brother, I whispered, holding back tears. No matter what happened, my family would always be my safe harbor. When Leo noticed my empty seat, a strange sense of nervousness crept over him. What was wrong with Alara? Ever since she had returned home, she had stopped clinging to him. Her quiet understanding was somehow more unsettling than her previous occasional noisiness. Feeling irritable, Leo drank one glass of wine after another. When I returned to the room, I found him thoroughly drunk. I moved to help him up, but he pushed me away. I don't want to go home, he slurred, his eyes filled with tears. Chloe, why did you leave me? Chloe, don't go. He looked like a lost, abandoned puppy. Everyone else in the room looked away, a silent, shared embarrassment in the air. Chloe, however, looked at me with a triumphant glint in her eyes. She put on a show of apology. Alara, I'm so sorry. Leo's just like this. I'm afraid... Well, I'll trouble you to take care of him, Chloe, I said, generously entrusting Leo to her. Alara! Are you even a woman? Mark demanded, his eyes flashing with anger. My casual attitude towards his friend seemed to infuriate him. Don't you still have me, your good brother? I looked indifferently at Leo, who was now clinging to Chloe, refusing to let go. Without another word, I turned and walked out. Back at the apartment, I packed my things. Everything in that home that tied me to Leo was quickly and efficiently removed. After a moment's hesitation, I opened the door to his studio. The room was filled with countless copied sketches of a woman's back. I sighed, sat down at the easel, and found the original sketch, its paper yellowed and stained with the passage of time. I had drawn this hastily on the day Leo and I first met. As I was leaving, I had accidentally dropped it. He picked it up and brought it home, and it became the wellspring of his inspiration. I picked up a pencil and put the final stroke on the page, adding a touch of color to the unfinished drawing from all those years ago. Leo didn't come home that night. I didn't call him. Instead, I went to my own design studio. Alara, are you really leaving us? My colleagues asked, surrounding me with reluctant faces. I had built this studio from the ground up, piece by piece, and now that it was finally beginning to thrive, I had to walk away. You can all stand on your own 2 feet now, I said. Don't let what I've left behind go to waste. You stupid girl, my best friend Maya scolded, though her eyes were filled with heartache. Just leaving without a word, how cruel. She knew better than anyone how much of myself I had poured into that relationship. When the talented artist Leo was embroiled in a plagiarism scandal that nearly destroyed him, it was I who helped him claw his way back. When he sank into a severe depression, I stayed by his side constantly, guarding him every step of the way. I would run back and forth from my own work just to have dinner with him, terrified he might do something to hurt himself. To clear his name, I had meticulously investigated the truth, contributing my own money and effort, paving the way for his comeback. To avoid hurting his pride, I had adopted the pseudonym Bao and secretly bought his paintings at auction, incorporating his artistic elements into my clothing designs to help him regain his confidence. Did you see? One of the young designers at a nearby table said, flipping through a magazine. Maya's latest collection just launched. The centerpiece is a wedding dress designed by the rising star, Chloe. Besides Miss Bao, Chloe's designs are the most distinctive. I heard the pattern on this skirt was painted by the talented artist Leo himself, her friend added. How romantic. A love that goes both ways. But didn't they break up a long time ago? Leo has a girlfriend. So what if he has a girlfriend? Love is a game for the brave. Besides, Chloe and Leo met first. Their love is a match of equals. That junior college girl is not worthy of him at all. Love is about mutual growth. She would only drag him down. The girls chattered on, their faces lit with smiles. Maya's face went pale with anger. What kind of twisted logic is that? She hissed. Don't bother, I said, holding her back as she made to stand up. It's not worth it. Once we were outside the cafe, she was still fuming. I don't want to be involved in this relationship anymore, I told her quietly. But you've done so much for him. You've taken 99 steps towards him, Alara. Do you really want to give up now? As my best friend, Maya knew the depths of my feelings. I nodded, my gaze firm. I don't want to wait for him anymore, Maya. Leo will never take that final step. Even if I walk all the way to him, his heart will just go to someone else. When you realize you're on the wrong path, you should change direction. What if one day, she pressed, you're standing side by side with him, or even higher than him, and he regrets his decision and comes running back to you? Will you turn around? I shook my head. People don't just stand still waiting. After I finished packing, I found an unexpected guest waiting outside my apartment. I recognized her immediately. Leo's sister, Isabel. Her eyes were filled with a deep, unconcealed disdain. I won't come in, she said coolly. I just came to tell you that the only daughter-in-law our family will ever recognize is Chloe. You must also know that you and Leo are different. It's difficult for you to connect with him on an intellectual level. Alara, if you can't fit in, it's better not to force it. I looked at her aggressive stance and managed a half smile. Really? Then why did Chloe insist on leaving him all those years ago? Was it because she didn't have a soul resonance with him? At the end of the day, Alara, I hope we can all maintain a little bit of decency, she said, her tone sharp. My brother is confused. I hope you can be wise enough to retreat when you face difficulties. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an academic discussion on ancient cultural etiquette to attend. With that, she turned and left gracefully. I watched her go, a flicker of sarcasm in my eyes. I remembered when Leo was at his lowest, suffering from depression. Isabel had come to me then, her face solemn. Leo is so fragile right now, Alara, she had said. I feel relieved leaving him in your care. But now, she was asking me to maintain my dignity and walk away. When Leo came home that night, I noticed he was wearing different clothes. I recognized the style. It was the latest couples set launched by May, and the designer was Chloe. He saw my gaze and quickly explained. I got sick all over myself. This was the only men's clothing Chloe had at her place. Don't worry, nothing happened between us. Mark was there the whole time. I just smiled. Mark was the biggest cheerleader for Leo and Chloe's relationship. Leo held up a cake box, his expression guilty. Tomorrow is our anniversary. I bought your favorite mango cake. I stared at the slightly melted cake, a bit stunned. Sorry, it melted a little, he said, annoyed with himself for forgetting to put it in the refrigerator while he was delivering medicine to Chloe. It's okay, I said, shaking my head. I can still make a wish. But Leo, I'm allergic to mangoes. Have you forgotten? Besides, it's already ruined. Just throw it away. I'm going to bed. As I turned to leave, he seemed to sense my distance and felt an inexplicable nervousness. He appeared to make a decision, stepping forward and grabbing my hand. Alara, would you come home with me tomorrow? To meet my family, formally? I had planned on telling him I was leaving. What were he and his sister playing at? Thinking of Isabel's aggressive visit earlier, I decided it was best to have this final conversation at his family's home. It would prevent any future confusion or misunderstanding. You seem different lately, Alara, Leo remarked in the car the next day, his tone ambiguous. I ignored him, choosing instead to watch the scenery fly by the window. The Leo family home was exactly as one would imagine a famous scholarly family's residence to be, filled with the quiet, dignified atmosphere of literati and poets. I heard Leo was bringing his girlfriend home today. A woman, whom I assumed was his aunt, said to Chloe. So I had to come and have a look. Ilara won't mind me being here, will she? Chloe smiled gently, a look that made Mrs. Fang's eyes crinkle with delight. Of course not. We're all family here. Isabel shot me a meaningful look. They were a family. I was the outsider. At their home, Chloe was the star, surrounded by everyone, discussing topics I couldn't contribute to. She was well versed in ancient and modern knowledge, quoting classics with ease, which earned her repeated expressions of admiration from Mr. James. I sat quietly, sipping my tea, feeling like an invisible person who had been set aside. Chloe, could you take Ilara for a walk in the yard? Mrs. James eventually said, her eyes filled with a clear contempt. It was a polite dismissal. I tactfully stood up and walked out. Ilara, let's talk, Chloe said, joining me in the garden. We all appreciate your dedication to Leo, but you see, I am the most suitable daughter-in-law for the Leo family. They are a family of scholars, famous and elegant people in Beijing. They value the matching of family status. You're a smart person. You know how to use this to your advantage. I looked at her, a hint of sarcasm playing on my lips. A good match? Are you making this decision for Leo without even asking him? It wouldn't matter how many times you chose, the outcome would be the same, she said, smiling that same meaningful smile. You still don't understand, do you? I can help you, you know. I can help you study abroad, become a celebrity, integrate you into this circle. Then you could also find a good match for yourself. She looked at me with an expression of supreme pity. I don't need it, I said flatly. Ilara, why make this so difficult? If you insist, then I'll have to change my methods to make you give up completely. A calculating smile touched her eyes. I ignored her and walked away. The family dinner ended on a sour note. On the way back, Leo looked tired. I was about to finally tell him about the breakup when his phone rang urgently. It was Isabel. Leo, come back quickly. Chloe's in a very bad state. At the same time, a photo arrived from Chloe. She was sitting on the ledge of a skyscraper rooftop, wearing the wedding dress she had designed. The wind whipped her skirt around her, and her expression was one of profound sadness. The caption read, Leo, I will marry you again in the next life. I saw his back as he turned and ran towards the skyscraper without a moment's hesitation. As tears fell with the wind, I turned and walked in the opposite direction. Back in the apartment, I finished packing my things. A new story was being pushed on social media, the extraordinary love story between a talented painter and a rising star in the fashion industry. In the video clips, Leo and Chloe were embracing affectionately. The marketing accounts kept pushing the narrative. I suspected it was Isabel's work. I sighed and changed my departure time to 10 o'clock the next night. Close to morning, Leo finally stumbled home, the reek of alcohol clinging to him. I wet a towel and gently wiped his face. He grabbed my hand, his other arm wrapping around my waist. Ilara, he mumbled. Chloe has depression. I was just trying to calm her down. Don't overthink it. Yes, I replied quietly. I know everything. When he was suffering from his own severe depression after the plagiarism accusations, I was the one who helped him. I remembered the time he had slit his wrists in the bathroom. I had rushed to his apartment in a torrential downpour, broken down the door with my bloodied hands, and carried him to the hospital myself. I felt a little dazed and tried to push him away, but he only held me tighter. Sometime during his drunken mumblings, a ring appeared on my hand. Ilara, this is for our anniversary. I looked at the ill-fitting ring, and a bitter smile touched my lips. It was far too big for my finger. Compared to the high-profile romantic declarations of love on skyscrapers, the love he offered me was just drunken gibberish. Ilara, after I finish this competition, let's get engaged, okay? It's almost the end of the year. We'll have a reunion dinner together. Didn't you say your uncle wanted to meet me? What kind of gift do you think he would like? Ilara, why are you crying? He panicked slightly, as if he had never seen me cry before and was at a loss for what to do. I had asked him so many times to come home with me, but he was always too busy. We would never have that reunion dinner now. I wiped my tears away, quickly composing myself. He seemed to misinterpret my tears for joy, thinking his efforts had finally paid off. He patted my back gently. Be good, don't cry. He confessed that when Chloe had questioned him earlier that day, the person who had flashed through his mind was me. He promised that once Chloe's condition was completely stable, he would marry me. It's late, go to bed early, I said, turning to go to my room. Alara, let's celebrate our anniversary tomorrow, he said, grabbing my hand, a flustered look on his face. This time, we'll just stay home and not go anywhere. I nodded, deciding to have the final, definitive conversation with him tomorrow. The next day, I cooked a table full of his favorite dishes. But when I opened his bedroom door, it was empty. A note on the table read, Alara, I'm going to the hospital with Chloe for a follow-up. I'll be back for dinner with you tonight. I waited quietly at the dining table. The food was reheated again and again. 8 o'clock in the evening came and went, and Leo still hadn't returned. A wry smile formed on my lips. It was time to go. In the last few minutes before boarding at the airport, I tried to call him one last time, but his phone was off. Then, my friend sent me a screenshot. Isabel had just updated her social media. It was a photo of Chloe, Leo, and their parents, happily eating a reunion dinner together. The caption read, "A new member of our family." I clicked like on the post. Then I opened my chat with Leo. I edited a short message and sent it. Let's end this. I wish you and Chloe happiness. I've left your ring on the table. Leo, I'm not waiting for you this time. After sending it, I blocked his number and tossed my phone into an airport trash can. As soon as I stepped off the plane, I saw my brother Ethan waiting for me. Have you handled your business? He asked softly. I nodded. Whatever happens, welcome home, Alara. We drove home together. When my mother saw me, tears welled in her eyes. It's good that you're back. At the same time, hundreds of miles away, Leo frowned. He had finally managed to talk things out with Chloe, taken her to her family, and calmed her down. It was already late, so he told Isabel to take good care of her and then left in a hurry. He had only one thought in his mind. Alara was still waiting for him at home. He reached for his phone to call her, only to find it was dead. An uneasy feeling settled in his heart. He felt as though he had lost something critically important. Alara will definitely wait for me, he told himself. She always does. Every time he came home late, she would be sitting quietly on the sofa, waiting for him before she would go to sleep. He tried to comfort himself with this thought, but when he walked into the apartment, he saw only a table of cold food. He rushed into Alara's room and found it empty. He quickly plugged in his phone to charge. When it turned on, he saw the message from her. "Where are you?" he typed frantically, but his message was met with a red exclamation mark. She had already blocked him. Leo finally panicked. He hurriedly dialed her number, but it was turned off. At last he understood the source of his uneasiness over the past few days. Alara had become more and more sensible simply because she no longer cared. Everything had changed since she came back. What on earth had happened? They were supposed to get married soon. She had done so much for him. How could she give up on him now? No, he decided. They would get married as soon as the competition was over. She would definitely wait for him. However, I had no time to think about Leo. I was immediately overwhelmed by the mountain of work waiting for me at home. Ethan had been managing the family business, and since our father's death, he had been stretched to his limit. Alara, you don't have to work so hard, he said, his eyes filled with concern for his sister. Brother, please arrange a meeting for me with Mr. Adrian Pay tomorrow. This can't go on. At the cafe, Adrian Pay picked up a fashion magazine from the table. It's a big project, combining tradition with modernity, he commented, casually flipping through the pages with his slender fingers. The first article was a report on the entry of the talented painter, Leo. His latest painting was a portrait of a woman's back, a graceful figure outlined in a goose-yellow gown. Another work showed the back of a young boy, a piece marked by time and controversy. On the cafe's television, a live broadcast of an award ceremony was playing. Chloe, is that you in the back of this painting? The host asked. It looks just like Leo's latest work. I declare these two paintings to be national love photos. did you draw the other one? Chloe, standing beside Leo, admitted it with a shy smile. I watched Leo on the screen. He didn't deny it. Substitution is the most shameful act in the art world, and Leo had done it for Chloe. A wry smile touched my lips. I really like these designs of yours, Alara, Adrian said, bringing my attention back. But your decision to change careers midstream is risky. I think, I replied, that risks and opportunities coexist. I trust you. Let's have a happy cooperation. My family's fashion brand had always held a mediocre position in the industry, something my father had worked tirelessly to change. Originally, I had cooperated with Adrian's company under my pseudonym, Bao, with the plan to return to my family after marrying Leo. I had never forgotten my father's wish. For Leo, I had given up the design department and come to his city to study business. Just as we were about to leave, a surprise announcement came from the TV. The winning painting of the grand prize was not Leo's work, but another piece signed Bao. My friend Maya waved from the stage as she accepted the award. She looked down at Adrian for help. "Brother, save me," she mouthed. Adrian turned his head, ignoring her plea. "Go on," I said to her calmly when she called me later. "Ilara," she confessed, "I just didn't want everything you've done to be buried, so I used the things you left behind to sign you up for the competition. Chloe wants to claim your honor." There was a raw anger in her voice. "The whole internet is going crazy. Bao and Chloe's fake work are so similar that she's being doxxed now. It doesn't matter if we trace the source. All of Chloe's dark history has been uncovered. She was the one who plagiarized Leo all those years ago. She sold his paintings to pay for her studies abroad. Now that she's famous, the agent who helped her resell the paintings is trying to extort money from her. I guess they couldn't reach an agreement." She took a breath. "Don't be angry. I heard you needed a partnership. I asked my brother to come with sincerity this time. We can't give up our studio. Besides, your talent is greater than those two combined." A warm feeling spread through my chest. I knew Maya was still angry about everything I had gone through. "You damn girl," I said, smiling. "The auction in Beijing in 3 days requires the champion to paint a new piece. Part of the proceeds will be used for a charity fund. What are you going to draw?" I smiled and thought of the 2 love portraits. That's it, I decided. At the auction, I saw Leo. Chloe was no longer by his side. "Ilara," he said, his voice hesitant. "So you are Teacher Bao. I've kept that sketch. I've been looking for you." The sketch I had dropped, which he had picked up, had become his source of inspiration. Thinking of that stunning, fleeting glimpse I had of him once, I realized the person before me was no longer the young boy from my memory. The French organizer of the event approached to greet me, and I smiled and responded politely. "Ilara?" Leo said again, a hint of surprise in his voice as he processed my fluent French. Then he seemed to remember something. "Sorry, let's go." Adrian Pei came over with a smile, helping me out of the conversation. He looked at Leo with raised eyebrows. "Ilara, who is he?" Not waiting for an answer, Adrian stretched out his hand to me. I took his arm. "Leo, you should probably pay more attention to your fiancé." The items at the auction included not only paintings, but also many antiques. For some reason, every time I showed interest in something, Leo would bid against me. "No more bidding," Adrian said, looking at me with amusement. "We still have to consider the cost. That's not how you spend money." He smiled, then raised his own bidding card. Leo, standing nearby, had a flicker of anger in his eyes. A Song Dynasty Rue Kiln vase was bid up to 10 times its original price. In the end, it was won by Adrian. "I imagine Mr. Pei will buy it to make a nice vase, right?" Leo said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Mr. Pei may not fully appreciate its aesthetic value. Isn't it a pity to let it gather dust?" "Value? Isn't its value given by people?" Adrian replied coolly. "The most direct way to demonstrate value is money. I can buy it for 100, 1,000, or 10,000 times the price. In my eyes, it is a treasure." He looked at Leo meaningfully. "Just like if Bao hadn't used fashion to interpret your paintings, you would probably still be an unknown painter. You are simply tarnishing art, Leo shot back. Adrian ignored him. The next item to be auctioned was my work. Leo held his breath. The painting was another back view, but the person depicted was no longer him. A smile flashed across Adrian's eyes, and he made a gesture that silenced the entire room. Leo clenched the bidding card in his hand. He didn't even have a chance to bid. Adrian's gesture signified a sky lantern, an unlimited bid. No matter how high the price went, he would top it. Leo's face turned pale, his eyes filled with unwilling defeat. He simply had no capital to compete with Adrian Pay. Even if he sold his entire family's estate, it wouldn't be a drop in the bucket for the Pay family. After the auction, Adrian and I prepared to return to the studio. The pattern on this vase is very suitable for the theme of our new clothing line, I said. Both Pay's jewelry and my company's clothing can use this concept. Do what you want, he replied. Thank you for the expense today, Mr. Pay, I said with a smile. I like the painting you drew for me, he whispered quietly in my ear. When I was going home that night, I saw a familiar figure at the door. Elara, Leo said, his eyes filled with a pained tenderness. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice cold. I said we would get married after this competition, he stated, determination in his eyes. Don't you want Chloe anymore? I've told you, Chloe and I are just friends. She's just a patient. I've always treated her like a sister. Leo, I plan to inherit my family's business. We are not on the same path. Chloe is the qualified daughter-in-law for your circle. Don't come looking for me anymore. Elara, don't you want me anymore? He asked, suddenly hugging me from behind, his arms tight around my waist. I pulled away calmly. Leo, please stop. I'm engaged to someone else now. You're lying. There's no way. You'll wait for me. Just then, my brother called out, Elara. He looked at Leo with open hostility. This is Leo, right? I've heard about you from Elara. If you don't mind, come in and sit down. Hearing this, a hint of joy flashed across Leo's face. I sighed but didn't stop him. I had told my brother everything, and I knew he was a vindictive person. I knew exactly what he was planning. When Leo saw Adrian Pay sitting in our living room, his face turned pale. I don't know what Adrian and my mother had talked about, but she was smiling from ear to ear. Hello, Auntie, I'm Leo, he said. My mother looked at him kindly and motioned for him to sit. Auntie, I'm here this time to... But my mother interrupted him. Elara, the Pay family and our family have always had a child marriage arrangement. Now that you're home and we have Mr. Pay here, I don't have to arrange any more blind dates for you. Auntie, don't you want to ask Elara's opinion? Leo asked, looking at me with persistence. Adrian also turned to look at me. Of course I agree, I said. Leo didn't know how he managed to walk out of our house. Adrian looked at me with a hint of hesitation. I know you just said that in anger, he began, looking at Leo's retreating back. For some reason, his usually sympathetic heart had hardened. He had sent people to investigate Leo, and the facts of what Leo had done were chilling. I looked at him and shook my head. I didn't say it in anger, otherwise I wouldn't have painted that picture. Leo is right about one thing. Marriage is decided by parents and matchmakers. We are a perfect match. I took a ring box from my purse, opened it, and placed the ring on his finger with a smile. My family started as clothing designers. Measuring sizes with your eyes is a basic skill. This ring was a perfect match for the one he wore. The two rings, neither too big nor too small, were a perfect pair. This girl, Elara... A hint of surprised delight flashed in Adrian's eyes. We looked at each other and smiled. Leo reported Chloe for plagiarism, not just for the false claim on my painting, but for everything. It turned out all her designs were copied from others. Her startup capital had come from selling the copyrights to stolen sketches. She had left the country after hurting him, and if he hadn't investigated her abroad, he never would have known that her talent was built on deception. Even her supposed design drawings were sketches by another man. Thinking of the agony he had endured when he was accused of plagiarism, He was horrified that he had favored such a person. Exposed and disgraced, Chloe fell into ruin, hiding in the shadows. The man in front of her had destroyed everything for her. She waited for the right moment, then stabbed the knife she had hidden in her hand into his palm again and again. Chloe was arrested by the police, and Leo was sent to the hospital. The tendons and veins in his hand were severed. He would never be able to pick up a paintbrush again. Raising a son is not a difficult task, but Leo closed himself off from the world again. He liked to stay in the yard, staring at the yellowed painting of her back. Isabel looked at her brother with deep regret. They had been wrong, so wrong, and had made her brother miss out on true happiness. But it was too late now. The news reported the lavish wedding of the Pei and Chiao families. Adrian Pei and Alara Chiao were a perfect match, complementing each other in every way. Some things, once missed, are gone forever. Leo looked into the distance. The sun outside had already set, and his sun had set too.